Hi everyone. Today I will be taking a look at Key's latest Kinetic novel. This is the third and final installment of their 3 planned Kinetic novels that they announced a few years ago. This of course was Project Stella. We were originally made to believe that there would only be 3 in this Kinetic novel series, but then Key came out with the announcement that Primadoru is also going to be turned into 4 Kinetic novels, so as much as it's not exactly the same where these were 3 installments, each with different writers and completely new titles, they still will be continuing to put out Kinetic novels over the next 2 years, which is really exciting, so I'm very much looking forward to seeing that. But this is indeed the third installment of their 3 project Kinetic novels that were announced a couple of years ago. This game was highly anticipated, particularly because it was written by Tanaka Romeo, who specifically for Key wrote a lot for Rewrite, and he's also very famous for games like Cross Channel, and for me in particular, I originally discovered his work through Tsui Made Namairu. So this game, of course, everyone was very excited to see take on a sci-fi setting. That's quite interesting for them. The nice thing with these Kinetic novels as well is not only did they introduce both old and new stuff for the scenario writing, they also had artists who had not drawn for Key before. The only exception for this is of course Lunaria, where Fumiyun was actually the main character designer, but this was indeed her first time working as a main character designer rather than just drawing 1 or 2 main and side characters like in Summer Pockets. The artist for Tsui no Stella is Suavu, who has not drawn for Key before and has a very different style to their usual games. I think it's really interesting to see not just the sci-fi element being taken on here, but also such an interesting art style. I felt the same with Loopers, where that was a very different looking game and I think really worked for the story. I have seen some comments from various Kagiko on Twitter where they're kind of skeptical about these games because they don't look like Key games, or it's not written by certain writers. I don't think there's anything wrong with trying out new genres, and again, this isn't a full price game, this is a Kinetic novel, so it's linear, it's not got loads of endings, and it's a way for all of these new staff and older staff to come for the first time or for the first time in a long time and work on a Key game. And it really opens up a lot of doors for Key. They've managed to do so many different things even in just the past 3 or 4 years that I never thought they would have done before that. It's a good thing. I don't think there's really anything bad about that at all. Whether you want to play the game or not is up to you. Loopers and Lunaria, in my opinion, were actually very good, but to compare them to their full-priced normal Nakige I think is quite strange. I don't know why, but I've seen a lot of Kagiko at the moment in Japan really talk down about these games, but then they'll compare it to the typical anime adaptations of things. I definitely think it's a good thing that Key are venturing out into all of these genres, that they've actually gone back and really revived the Kinetic novel genre through doing these 3 projects, not only introducing new stuff and old stuff, but also really kickstarting it back up. And it's a really nice way for people to actually play one of their games for the first time. If you've never played a Key game, if you've never played a visual novel even, a Kinetic novel is a really good way in. These are such short games in comparison to something like Clannad or Little Busters, and the writing is still there. These are still fantastic writers, and some of them, when I read the staff comments in the little booklets that come with these Kinetic novels, they really make me appreciate it so much more that some of these staff grew up playing Air and Little Busters, and then they actually got to work on a game all these years later, and Key games inspired them to either become a musician or an artist or whatever, and then later on they actually did manage to come in and work on a game through the Kinetic novel project. So I really don't think there's a reason to be bashing these. I don't know why I've seen some weird comments. I don't think the people saying these things are truly Kagiko, but there you go. But regardless, I've been really looking forward to this one since this is the final project of the 3. In terms of pre-order bonuses, for the past 2 games as well, I have videos on those too, but you may have noticed I did not pick up the Gogaban and I did not pick up anything with a big bonus, purely because these games are quite small. As much as I like all 3 artists, I'm very particular about having Naga's art on the wall and no one else. So I wanted small things that I could display on a shelf rather than the wall. I actually bought Tsui no Stela from Animate. I don't even think I looked at what it came with. I just wanted the game since they come with the soundtrack. That for me is the most exciting part about these Kinetic novel first press editions, where they come with the soundtrack. So I didn't really mind what I got, just as long as it was something convenient and not a tapestry. So far, all 3 Kinetic novels, I've really enjoyed all of their bonuses, but in particular I think Looper's had the best one with the almost stained glass like coaster. That one looks really good. I hope they make more things like that in the future. In terms of what I got as an animate bonus, it is just a B2 multi-cloth. I have no idea what I'm going to do with it, but it just seemed like the most convenient thing to get. I haven't really been that fussed about the Kinetic novel bonuses for all of the games, not just for this one, just since I really want to play the game, and particularly I just want the first press edition for the soundtrack, so I wasn't really that bothered about what I got, as long as it wasn't anything too big. So this is quite nice. It's a nice illustration of Fidia and also Derrida as well. Something rather confusing that I think is incorrect is that on the official website for Tsui no Stella, it says that the animate bonus is an A4 acrylic panel, which is not true. Page itself even just had this cloth written there as the only bonus that you would receive, and the physical edition that is right here only came with this as well. I don't know why it says there's an A4 acrylic panel, unless that was the actual Gorgaban of the game. I'm not too sure, but it certainly didn't come with the first press edition, so I think that either it comes with the Gorgaban and they just haven't made that clear on the website, or they just haven't gotten the correct information. As for the game itself, the front cover is the very famous key visual from Tsui, who drew this illustration and designed all of the characters. It's a very different looking illustration for a key game, and I think again that that's a really nice thing. We have the logo at the bottom, which is of course Tsui no Stella, and the English name, which is Stella of the End, and also just the little slogan for the game is there too. The first press edition of this game is exactly the same size as Looper's and Lunaria, so it's a little bit smaller than your typical visual novel. And the back of the box, 空の向こうに行けば人間になれる, is the quotation that they've gone for at the top of the box there. We have the synopsis about the game, also just the characters there too. We've got Fidia, Judo, Wiremu and Derrida was quite popular, I think, design-wise. She doesn't have a leg, I believe, so it's quite an interesting looking character. And of course we have the staff, the scenario is Tanaka Romeo, and the illustration is Suavu. The vocals, we have Aimiya Zero and also Rionosu, who is quite well known for both her singing and also her song writing as well. They've sung both insert songs. And then the BGM. Ice in particular is quite interesting since they are a Taiwanese composer and it's their first time working on a key game, so I think that's very exciting to see. At the bottom you can see that the Shokai Gentei Ban comes with a soundtrack and a vocal song CD, and also a full colour art book as well. At the bottom we have Key's logo and also the Kinetic novel brand logo too. And the contents of the game itself come like this. So we have a record of succession. This is the full colour art book. And we have the soundtrack. I didn't expect the illustration to be so pretty, so I'm really pleased about that. This is lovely. This is really pretty. Wow, I think this is the best soundtrack out of all the Kinetic novels. Lunaria didn't actually have any illustration, it was just yellow with the logo. And Lupus did have a nice illustration of the main characters lined up, but this is just something else. I can understand that drawing an entire game, designing characters, and then having to do all of the bonuses as well can be quite time consuming, so a big thank you to Suavu for drawing an actual illustration for this soundtrack. That's really cool to see. And if we take a look at the back, it has the same white, black and grey block style artwork that's used on both the box and also the art book, and we have just all of these songs and vocal songs on one disc. This is the art book. I'm not going to look into it too much since, if I remember correctly, I was spoiled on one of the Kinetic novels with the art book, so I will just skip to the staff comments since that's the bit I really want to see. But it's got a nice shiny cover, which is quite cool. Although I just want to point out how well drawn this design is. This is really cool to see. The fact that this is from Key as well, I mean, just from looking at it you would never have guessed that, so I really like that about it. But Suavo is really talented and that's a really cool design. I managed to skip to the end without being spoiled, so that's a good start. We have the actual package illustration along with the illustration that I just saw a moment ago of the CD jacket, and this is fantastic. I kind of wish that this was the cover of the game, or it had been used on some of the goods, since if this had been on any of the bonuses I would have bought it straight away. It's a shame that it's just used for the CD, but very nice illustration nonetheless. And we have the comments, which is the part that I wanted to read. We have an actual illustration from Suavo himself. This is very nice to see. お楽しみいただけますと幸いです. And he's signed it there as well. A very nice sketch of Fidia from the side. And we have Tanaka Romeo and also Karamasu. Karamasu was in charge of the mechanic designs, all of the big mechanical machines and things like that. And of course Tanaka Romeo is the scenario writer. I really like the robot here. We have a comment from Ice. I hope to see them in a Key game in the future since he's very talented. We have some comments from the various musicians and vocalists. It's always very nice to see all of these staff comments at the end, but I definitely recommend looking at this after you've played the game. I'm pretty sure it was Looper's where I looked through the art book, since I had no idea that it would just be full of spoilers, and I had it pretty spoiled for me, so I definitely recommend looking at the art afterwards. The character introductions and also the staff comments are completely fine, but anything in between that is a bit dangerous. And this is the game disc itself. It has that very cool blocky style artwork that they've been using, and inside we have the usual technical manual from Visual Arts, which has not changed in a million years, and I hope it never does. And then there is the disc, a very simple disc that I think matches the game quite nicely. And the back just looks like that, and it says Kinetic novel there too. And that is everything that comes with the first press edition of Tsui no Stella. I've been very looking forward to this game. I like anything to do with the robots and things like that, and it was very interesting to see all of the different mechanical machine designs used in this game. I think that's quite unusual for Key. It's very interesting to see them venturing out and trying these things. Looking back, I don't think I regret having not bought any of the Gorkabang for any of the Kinetic novels. The games themselves have been sufficient enough, but just the fact that the first press editions come with this soundtrack I think is a really nice touch. I hope they do that with the Prima Doll ones as well. I'm very much looking forward to those releases, so it's very cool that this won't be the last of this Kinetic novel series that we've been seeing for the past couple of years. So far, I'd say that Looper's was still my favourite. I just think the cast was a little bit more similar to Little Busters perhaps, and they all bounced off each other quite nicely. That's just my own personal bias because I like anything similar to Little Busters, but all three of these games, I'm sure this one will be just as fantastic, but the previous two games as well were a joy to play. A big thank you to all of Key's staff and all of the new staff that joined to make this. On all of these Kinetic novels, everyone has really outdone themselves. And it's just been really cool to see Key trying out all of these new things. This game, I believe, has a download edition as well, and it's really cheap, so you can just buy the download edition and play it straight away. And I'm not sure if the first press edition is still available anywhere. I know that they were doing orders for the Gorkabang again, so there is a chance to pick that up if you haven't. I'm very glad that I picked up the first press editions just because these soundtracks are really good, and this one in particular has my favourite art, so I'm very glad that they were kind enough to give us soundtracks for all three games and bundle them with the games. But thank you very much for watching until the end of the video. I hope you enjoyed, and I hope to see you all in the next video. Bye!